So the story looks like this. You create a values-focused culture where every little act that you do is going to create an experiential value because you've focused on the personality science that we went over in the first class, and you focused on the emotional science skills that we focused on the second class, and directing people towards their energy and their thoughts and their what's working and what's not. Then you can create a VP-focused culture as a result of all of that activity, following these 3 different methodologies. That's our hope. So what does that look like? That looks like a VP culture, again, with a current that you as a leader can help create this current by discussing values and things like that that bring people, that drive people to a singular point of valuing people. They're being pulled along that river where they're excited to be at your workplace. They're excited to follow your leadership, not because you're in a command control situation, but because you've done all these proactive activities that develop the skills that creates the current that leads your whole group towards the central point of being valued. So one last story that illustrates what values can do. So Joe, he was a worker at in a forklift in a factory, and he had just gotten the new job, and he was pretty excited about it. And unfortunately, his excitement was reduced when he ended up on a stretcher being put into the ambulance by Layla, our friendly EMT here. She found Joe lying flat on the floor not minutes before, where he had just passed out cold. He had been driving his forklift. He stopped. He felt a little woozy, got out, and just fell flat on the floor, knocked out cold. They called 911, and Layla came, and she had Joe in the back of her ambulance, and she put some oxygen on him, and soon Joe began to come to. And Joe's like, "Where am I? What's going on?" She says, "You're in the back of my ambulance. I'm taking you to the hospital." And Joe said, Whoa, stop. Take me back to my office. Take me back to the warehouse. I need to get back to my job. She's like, wait, Joe, you could have something serious. You could be really hurt. And Joe's like, "No, I just got this job just 2 days ago. My boss is going to think I'm flaky if I'm just running off and going to the hospital. They think I showed up drunk or something. And then I'm just a horrible worker. I really need this job. I just got it through a friend. And I haven't been in work for 2 years now. And I've got a 2-year-old, just about got evicted. I found out my wife is pregnant and she's going to school. I really have to go back and keep this job." But Layla said, "You know what?" She listened well, and she was very empathetic. And she said, "I've been in those situations too. Like 2 years ago, I was in that exact same place until I got this job as an EMT. I was in pretty desperate situations. And then this job came along, so I understand. But Joe, you got to understand, you're not going to do any good for your family if you're dead. I mean, you could have something in your brain that could cause you to die in a second if you just passed out like that for no good reason. We should take you to the hospital and get this checked out." So she went on to take him to the emergency room, and she had to go on another call. While Joe was at the emergency room, they ran all sorts of tests on him. They ran EKGs. They ran, his heart was fine. They did a CAT scan on his brain. His brain seemed fine. There was no blood clots anywhere. They did blood tests. All the tests just turned out to be normal. And Layla was thinking about it, and she came back, and she decided to talk to the doctor. And when she talked to the doctor, he didn't look too pleased at first, because most of the time EMTs are not giving medical advice to the attending physicians at the hospital. And you could see the other people in the background a little bit skeptical about this situation. But this is the Cooper Medical Center. They're trained in valuing people. So he was willing to give it a listen, because they hadn't come up with anything. And Layla said, I was thinking about it in the ride. And while I was reaching this other patient, and I had to come back because I think we need to examine his carbon monoxide levels. That may have been something that made him pass out. And they're like, "Well, we didn't check that. We checked just about everything else." So he said, I might as well listen to you, because listening was part of their culture. And so he did. He had the labs rerun, and they checked out his CO2 or his carbon monoxide levels, and they were through the roof. In fact, they had never seen anything that high before. In fact, they thought it was a false charge, a false result. And so they sent it back to the lab. Lab came back, same thing again. And these levels were so poisonous, they rushed him into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber where he could start getting rid of all the toxins from the carbon monoxide and reoxygenating his blood. It was a good thing they caught him because it could have caused permanent brain damage, damage to organ failure, and things like that. So they did all of that. And the doctor was just pleased that he had done that. He thought to himself, if I hadn't listened to Layla, because they had sent a toxicologist to the warehouse where Joe was working, and they found out that the heating system had been pumping carbon monoxide straight into the ductwork because it wasn't venting out through the exhaust in the ceiling anymore. So there was a breakdown in that, and it could have poisoned everyone because the new shift was coming online just in an hour or two, and they would have all been poisoned. They would have all been in the same situation with Joe, and somebody could have died if they hadn't found out, or Joe could have been put back into that situation and really had died. And he said, what would I have done if the news had found out, and if they had come and traced it to me and I hadn't done anything, or I hadn't listened to Layla? I couldn't have lived with that. I would have had to quit as a physician. It would have ended my career. So he was so glad that he had listened to her, and that they had gone on to do their tests, and that they had listened to Layla in situations where they wouldn't have normally listened to her. And he remarked how Layla was pretty incredible that she came back. It wasn't her job to think about that. It wasn't necessary for her to think beyond and value people more than she did. She valued Joe so much that she talked him into doing the right procedure, and she valued the whole process so much that she thought about what was excellent, what was noble, what was right for me to do. And she returned and risked herself a little bit. And you imagine what exhilaration they found when they all experienced that they had saved an entire warehouse of people from possible death. It was a great moment for the team, and a great moment for Joe, and a great moment for the entire situation. That's what we can bring when we bring valuing people culture to our organizations. We can have experiences like this. They might not always be that dramatic, but statistics show that when you bring a valuing people culture, you can affect people's home lives, their children's lives, because we as leaders, according to studies, have as much influence on people as their spouses do in terms of creating an environment that affects their health and well-being. That's a huge responsibility that we have to create these valuing cultures for those around us.